In this video, we're going to turn this, so we're going to strum from the 6th string down, just this shape. And that's E minor, into this. Hi, I'm Joe and welcome to the channel. I really do appreciate you taking the time to check out these videos. We've been doing a whole series of videos, so I'll put a link in the description below to the playlist. This series is about combining two chords, two specific chord combinations that you usually will switch to when you're playing a song. We first started with major chords, then we moved to minor chords, and in this video we're going to combine both major and minor chords. This video is broken down into 4 sections. In the first section, I'm going to show you the D major and E minor chord shape. Then I'll play you a musical example that uses those shapes. Third, I'll show you the song parts that I played on the guitar so you can see exactly what I'm doing and you can learn them at home. And finally, the 4th section, I'm going to give you some practice tips. Let's go ahead and get started with this one. Before we get into the practice track and the musical example, I wanted to show you the 2 chord shapes we're going to be using. We're going to start with the D major, and then we're going to move over to the E minor shape. So for D major, what you're going to do is you're going to have an open D string, your first finger on the 2nd fret of the G string, your 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the B string, and your 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the high E string. And then you strum from the 4th string down. So the D major will sound like this. E minor, we're going to start with the open E. We're then going to put our 2nd finger down on the 2nd fret of the A string. We're going to put our 3rd finger behind that on the 2nd fret of the E string, and then everything else is open. So we're going to strum from the 6th string down, just this shape. And that's E minor. Now, there's a little bit of a trick that you're going to see later on in this song, where we're actually going to take a D minor shape, which is going to be the open D string, your 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the G string, your 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the B string, and your 1st finger on the 1st fret of the high E string. That's a D minor. The root is underneath your 3rd finger here, and that's your D note. Well, if we move this whole shape, just these 3 strings up to this position here, where now we have our 2nd finger on the 4th fret of the G string, our 3rd finger on the 5th fret of the B string, and our 1st finger on the 3rd fret of the E string, and we just strum these 3 notes, we get E minor. Same sound. So we're going to be using that shape as well in this song. Okay, let's move over to the musical example. This song was a lot of fun to play, and there's actually 3 parts and 1 lead line. Let me show you the rhythm parts first. For the first part, we're going to use the D major shape and the D minor shape, but slid up to play E minor. And I showed you that earlier in the video. The part goes like this. And what you need to practice here is taking the D major shape and switching your fingers but leaving your 3rd finger down and sliding that whole hand position up to play the E minor. And it's a good exercise just to switch. You can even just practice switching from the D major to the D minor. And what I want you to get used to doing again is keeping that 3rd finger down. You have to think efficiently as a guitarist. You don't want to be too many movements, because the part will sound sloppy and you need the extra time to make sure that your rhythm values are good. So play the D, switch over to the D minor, and all the while you want to leave your 3rd finger down. Now when you get comfortable doing that, take that same idea but play the D and then slide it up to the E minor. So in this transition of moving your hand up, you're also switching your fingers. The second part is using the top half of the chords. So we have D major and we have E minor played like this, like you learned in the beginning. And all I'm doing though is I'm focusing on the two middle strings, the D and the G string. No other string am I worried about in here. So I can actually remove the other fingers that I need for the chord and just play the D and the A of the D chord. And for the E minor, I'm going to put my first finger over one string and play the E, and now the open G underneath it for the E minor. So that's all I'm doing. It's a very simple move of my first finger over to the next string. And I'm playing these as eighth notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 I gave you this part so you could start looking at these chords not as the whole shape, because sometimes you just need to play certain notes in a chord. You don't need to play the whole block of the chord all the time. The third part is very simple. What we're going to do is basically take that whole D chord now, strike it, and we're going to do the same thing with the E minor, but we're going to strike up. So I gave you this part to think about striking the strings clearly down and clearly up. So it goes simply like this. And when you do this, you really want to strike through the chord very quickly, but not hard. You're not digging in all the strings. You're brushing the strings on the top. You want it to be one clear motion, and also when you're coming up, one clear motion. So the practice for this, again, is just clean, clear strikes, but not digging in, killing the strings. You want to just go nice and quickly through. And that's all there is for the third part. And then I'll show you the bonus lead part up close. So for the bonus part, I wanted to show you the notes up close. All I'm doing is I'm playing with the chord tones, so the notes that make up the chord. So in D major, we have the notes D, F sharp, and A. And for E minor, we have E, G, and B. And what I'm doing is I'm playing those notes, but I'm going to play them in a different area on the neck in a different octave. But I'm just using the chord tones. So the beginning opening line went from E to D to A to G to F sharp to E. So again, those are all chord tones. So it went. And all I'm doing is I'm sliding from the E to the D, and then I'm going to slide from the A to the G, and then from the F sharp to the E. And I'm only going to pick the first note and slide down. To give it more of a vocal quality. Maybe more up tempo like this. And that's the first part of the lead line. For the second part of the solo, I'm playing off of the chord shapes. So we have the D here, and we also have the E minor here. And what I'm focusing on really is these two notes here of the chord, the root and the fifth, and again the root and the fifth. And so all I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the D, then I'm going to hit the A and slide up to the B, and then hit the E, which will be the root of the E minor, and then hit the E again, back to the D, and the cycle starts over again. So it's So again, like in the first part of the song, I'm going to pick the D, pick the A, no pick up to the B, so I'm just sliding it. So I'm just picking the A, sliding to the B, then I'm going to the E, E, back, and pick. So I'm picking all those notes. So there's only one note I'm not picking, which is the A to the B slide. So it goes. Up tempo. So let's talk about what to practice for this one. First, obviously get the new shapes underneath your fingers for the D major and E minor if you're not already familiar with them. And also practice that D minor shape, but slid up to the E minor position. And then you want to practice switching between the two chords. And really, I would just focus on the D major shape and the D minor shape at first. Remember how I talked about keeping that third finger down and just switching your two fingers? This really will help with your dexterity on the fretboard. And I would first do 4 beats of D major, and then maybe 4 beats of D minor, then do 2 of D major, 2 of D minor, and then do 1, 1, and just keep switching back and forth. And again, you want to watch how you're treating that third finger. You don't want to lift it up at all on the fretboard. You want to keep it down. Then, after you get that going, let's start taking that shape and moving it up. So making that transition, sliding up to the E minor. So start with D major, make the transition, switch your fingers, and slide it up, and play the E minor. And I always say this, but make sure you're practicing to a steady beat. You want to make sure that your hands can switch between the chords in the right appropriate time in the music. So you want to practice that, but you want to do it too early and you don't want to do it too late. You want to do it just right so you get that equal beat duration for each chord that you're trying to play. Remember, you can always download these tracks for free from my website and practice along with those. That's the purpose of them. That's why I made them for you, so they can be a great practice tool for you. So feel free to do that as well. Another thing to look at while you're practicing is remember to look at the chords, identify each individual note, and then maybe start experimenting playing chords in different fragments. Maybe just do 2 notes per chord, just like we did for the second part of the song. Just start experimenting with different fragments of the chords to see what kind of sounds and tonalities that you get from them. And the last thing, start looking at the chord tones maybe on 1 or 2 strings, just like we did for the lead line for this song. We broke up the notes of the chords on 2 strings, and we made lead lines from those. Again, playing chord tones will always be your strongest notes that you want to play when you're doing a solo. So start looking at the chords, look at the notes that make up the chords, and then try to outline those notes maybe on 1 string at first, just so you can identify where they are per string. And come up with your own melodies. Be creative. Have fun. That's all for this video. I hope you found some value in it, and I really do appreciate you taking the time to watch these. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe down below, hit the like icon, and knock the bell and you'll be notified when the next video comes out in this series. Until next time, have a great day.